know that you've been part of Reliance for a pretty long time, Reliance Entertainment. So as Group CEO, how do you envision the future of Reliance Entertainment now in the evolving landscape of Indian cinema and digital content?
So I think to give some perspective, let me talk a little bit about what is Reliance Entertainment from that point of view. So yeah, I have been in the system now for 18 odd years. I was the second employee of this company. Joined in 2007 at that point of time. Reliance Group have gotten into the business a year and a half before I joined. Their first entry into the business was when they took a stake in Manoj Madhavan. Then after a year or time, they started setting up their own film or the content businesses, etc. And I joined the company as the CFO of the film business. Over a period of time, of course, we looked after different other roles, different other activities, and etc. And I think now more than 10 years, last 10 or 10, 12 odd years, I must be handling the overall entertainment vertical. Where we stand in the entertainment vertical currently is that there are, by and large, 4 streams of businesses. Mm-hmm. We started as a film production company. Till date, we must have done anything between 450 to 500 odd films production and distribution put together. Okay. Out of which at least 120 odd films we must have produced, and balance must be distribution. Okay. And then in the film side also, almost last 7-8 years back, we created an interesting structure whereby instead of just going ahead and investing in a film, we invested in some marquee film directors company. Okay. And those became a joint venture of Reliance and the director. So like say Rohit Shetty Production is Reliance and Rohit Shetty joint venture. Similarly, we work with Imtiaz. We work with Raghu Das Gupta. We started the journey by investing in a company called Phantom, which was Vikas, Vikram, Anurag and Madhu. Over a period of time, that company only over a period of time disintegrated because the 4 partners, they separated. But incidentally, even today, Reliance work with the directors directly. So Vikram, last year we did Jubilee show. Vikas, we did Sunflower 1, Sunflower 2. He's also currently working on a film script. So this creative world, you just create your relationships and progress. So film is the first vertical. So apart from the production and distribution, we also have a Telugu film distribution vertical in South. That's a joint venture between Reliance, Suresh Babu and Sunil Narama of Asian Films. So that vertical is called Global. That does only Telugu film distribution in Nizam and Andhra. And other than that, we have syndication business in the films. This is broadly the film portion of the business. While we started, originally this company started as a film production, but currently film production distribution is around 55-60% of our business. And the balance verticals are that we also do significant amount of content for the platforms or the shows basically. So we started journey with Sacred Games, Sacred Games 1, Sacred Games 2. Last year we did Indian Police Force, we did Jubilee, we did Amber Girl. As we speak, generally in a year, anything between 4-5 shows we do. So that is our second vertical.
So the focus is more on films or on web series now?
No, I think from a focus point of view, so let me complete the last 2 part of the businesses and then I can tell you that where do we stand. So the third vertical is our animation business. We are the country's largest 2D animation studio. Close to 1,000 odd headcounts work directly and indirectly in our shows. And again, in the shows, what we do in animation is we don't do any outsource work. We work only on our own IPs. And the IPs generally which became popular at a film those IPs subsequently comes to animation. So like a Singham became a Little Singham, Simba became a Smashing Simba, Golmaal became a Golmaal Junior, and each of them has made already hundreds of episodes. I think Singham must be in the 600 plus episodes they must have done. Simba is also 200 plus episodes. Golmaal is also 200 plus episodes. So
this animation is one which was handled by Ashish Kulkarni earlier.
Ashish used to run that business. Ashish left almost, I think, must be 10 years back. So a gentleman called Tejunidhi Bhandari is the CEO, and we have 6 odd studios, but by and large the main setup is in Pune. And the fourth vertical is games, mobile games. And mobile games, the studio is also in Pune. Again, 100 odd headcount, and the CEO operates out of Chicago, but he travels between India and there. Again, mobile game largely in India, or largely is basically your entire 80-85% of revenue is outside India. So the IPs what we created around those games are mainly the IPs which are popular in the Western world. So WWE is a big game, Into the Badland, Real Steel, Drone. So generally the IPs which are popular in Hollywood or in television, Western television, those IPs have been taken and the games are made around that. So to answer to your question that what is the focus area, I think 6 to 7 years back our 95% business used to be film and 5% used to be non-film. If I look at it now, the film business will be probably 60 odd percent, 25% odd will be content for OTT, and last 15% business will be between mobile games and animations. Beyond this, there is another vertical which we incubated few years back. It was basically the business of image transactions, like companies like Getty Image or if you're familiar with that part of the Shutterstock and etc. We incubated a business few years back to incorporate India's first platform with India-centric images. But over a period of time, we pivoted and we went into the distribution part of the business. And currently, we are the India's largest distributor of the Shutterstock in that part. So broadly, these 4-5 verticals are there. And another allied business is in animation. While we run animation studios, we also run animation schools. So we have, I think, 15 odd schools across the group.
What brand is it?
It's called Reliance Animation or Big Animation. There are 15 odd schools. The courses run all the way between 3 months to 3 years. So degrees and diploma courses are also there. And I think cumulatively more than 10,000 students have passed out from our schools.
These are in Bombay, Maharashtra?
Across the country. Again, Pune is the own school, and then across the country franchisee model. But that part of the vertical is more, one objective apart from business as an education, the other main objective is to curate or source your talent, because the talent pool in animation is always a challenge. So if anyone asks us that what does Reliance do, I don't think it has been thought through, but what we do is that we create content agnostic to platform. That probably is in easiest way we can explain ourselves. So we make content for a mobile phone and we make content for a 70mm cinema screen. So for every platform or every format, Reliance is in the business of content creation. Coming back to your question, what you asked, that where do you see the business opportunity or the perspective of the going forward? So, of course, what we have seen that over last few decades of our own experiences in this space is that there has been significant technology shifts. There has been significant movements which has happened in consumer preferences, in kind of how the technology has evolved. How changes in the creation as well as changes in the distribution has happened. But the core strength where we feel as a group, or what we try to achieve, I won't say strength, but what we try to achieve is that ultimately the storytelling, right? Now, whether in spite or despite of shifts or changes, so long as your stories can touch the core of your audience, you have to evolve, adopt and adapt to the situations of the shifts, what is happening in the industry, but can't defocus from the core objective, which is your stories has to connect to the audience, right? So we see that we will remain a major player in the films. As an objective, of course, we will like to be in a space, or currently also what we are in a space, probably currently if we want to describe ourselves, our position in the film, probably will be in the top 5 studios or the top 3 studios in the country. But we have also evolved from a position of a studio to a producer, because our first 10 years of journey was more like a studio. The last 10 years of journey was actually with the makers. Because all the films what we produce ourselves. We don't outsource to somebody, we don't buy from someone at the end of the day. So films will continue to be a focus area. Future focus also will go towards regional as a space. We feel significant amount of content consumption and growth is happening in regional market. In the past, we have in our library, we must have done close to at least 40 to 50 regional films in the past. Last few years has not been a focus area, but that's another space where we definitely look forward to increase our effort and attention. Content creation for the OTTs are also going through significant kind of a shift. We foresee that the market is also shifting from an SVOD to AVOD, ad-driven model, and etc. And thereabout what all the changes will be. So we have to navigate our space and see that what kind of content creation in that space we'll continue to do. At the same time, it should be administratively sensible. And for animation, the focus, of course, we have not been able to delve into that space, mainly because there is a certain bandwidth, and that bandwidth we have focused on our own IPs. But we will be looking forward to aspects in animation. One is create a space or create the content for adult animation. In India, there is hardly a concept of adult animation. Everything is seen as a cartoon and everything is seen as a kids segment. That's a space we have been looking forward to creatively, if we can crack the space for a period of time. And the second element of animation, of course, we should look at what are the opportunities for even outsource work. But the talent pool is so if we work on 1,000 odd head counts and we are only able to serve 5 or 6 shows in a year, so only when we have been able to have source enough talent pool, then you can only look at the space. So these are the 2 areas which we'll look at. Broadly, we will remain in a content creation space. That's the broad philosophy.
Looking at the theatrical business, the less footfalls that you're seeing now, in the last maybe a year and a half, most of the movies have not been doing well. How do you see the theatrical aspect panning out in the midst of the OTT onslaught?
So one thing is for sure that there has been shift what has happened in terms of the consumer. If I look at some reality, what is happening across the globe, I think pre-COVID, I think there was a 2019 calendar. From the 2019 calendar to till as we speak on 2025, I'm talking of the India box office, we are still to achieve the 2019 footfalls. Okay, we are still, I think, in the box office value numbers, we probably have touched the 2019 numbers because of the ticket price increase and etc. But from footfall aspect, we are still at least anything between 8 to 12-13% less. So 10 to 12%, 13% less than what was the 2019 footfall. So one way of looking is like, is it like a glass half full or half empty? Now one way of looking at it is that 6 years or 5 years have gone by, but we are yet to reach the 2019 footfall. The other way of looking at it is that if I look at the world box office, if I look at Hollywood scenario, Hollywood is still 25 to 30% off from the 2019 footfalls. So from that point of view, India as a market has recovered better than many of the major global markets. But there is definitely a stress on strain on the box office space, and audience's preference, what kind of content audience wants to see in a television, what kind of, when I'm saying television, I'm loosely saying television as a hardware. I mean, whether you're seeing in a OTT or you're seeing in a satellite TV or VOD, but ultimately what kind of content you want to see in sitting in your home, vis-a-vis what kind of content you want to go to a cinema and have a collective viewing. There definitely a shift has happened, because lot of content, content which pre-COVID we have seen audiences to go to sample and to see in the weekends and etc. A section of this content audience is happy to consume at the home. In the same way, another very interesting phenomena what has happened in last 5 years, post-COVID scenario, the contents where audience are liking, those footfalls are reaching in never heard numbers. Like between 2021 to 2025, we have seen films are coming and doing 400 crore, 500 crore, 1000 crores box office, right? Whether we started with, of course, like with the Pathan, Jawan, then that year Gadar, Animal. This year, last year we have seen Sri 2, then we have seen Chhawa. So a movie going to a 400, 500, 600 crore number, we have not seen in our career in last 30 years, right? 100 crore, 200 crore, 250 crore, 300 crore would have been a stunning number. But in last 3 years, we have seen probably 10 films or say 15 films came and done extraordinary business. So one thing is pretty clear, that if one can strike that chord with the audience's aspirations, then there is no end to the footfall. At the same time, what is happening, that there is no mid case. So either it is going through the roof, or audience is shunning the content completely from a box office experience point of view. And I think to bring that theater going need, the first focus has to be on the content. If we are seeing in the same year that if a film is going and doing like even Pushpa, the kind of business what it did in the Hindi market, and audience is reaching and coming in the 4th week, 5th week, 8th week also, that kind of a business, then I think the first question we as an ecosystem have to ask ourselves, that are we catering to the correct needs, right? And or are we catering to our needs? So I think first we have to see that what are the audience's needs and are you catering to or not. So box office scenario, if I look at it in India, is a little complex situation now, because probably a clear correct trend is not emerging, and maybe it will take next few years to understand that what is the trend, because at least once you understand a trend, one ecosystem can start thinking that what will be my content pattern.
So in this entire scenario, do you see the escalating cost of production, looking at the star fees and the cost of production going up? Is that a major obstacle in this?
Yes and no. And I'll say why. Because see, there are two things. One thing is pretty clear, that the films which has really done big numbers in the last 5 years, last 4 years post-COVID, majority of them are spectacle. As if while spectacle is not a genre, but I think it has some spectacle, some high point, right? And majority of them are unapologetic, whether in terms of creativity, in terms of making a statement, the content has to be unapologetic. Whatever is your conviction, the conviction, if it is wrong, then it is wrong, but otherwise if the conviction is correct, then audience is coming. Now the moment you want to create a spectacle or to create a world, then the expenses will be there, right? At the same point of time, there is a significant amount of churn or discussions or thought processes happening in the industry, that how to cut down the cost which is not adding to the screen. That may be a talent fee, that may be a director fee, that may be a technician's cost, that may be any kind of wastages, that may be thinking of making a better planning, that you don't lose out on shoot days and etc. of the situation. So yes, since the mid-case scenario is not existing right now, there has been a severe stress on the community, that how to at least correct the cost, and that effort is there. How much it is happening, how much it is still to be done, how better things can be done. Yes, it is not that everything has happened, and it is not that everything is not people are not cognizant of. But What I don't foresee that if you set out a path for yourself that okay, I want to create the most attractive opportunity for this year for an audience, their cutting corners at a production level will probably will not add, because if you have a conviction, then you have to go with a probably full front. Of course, one has to be rational on the cost as well as all the elements of cost what we are talking of, but you can't plan, or you can't start a thought process in I'll cater to the audience, I'll give a product which is of a certain spectacle, but at the same point of time how I reduce. So a little dichotomy is there. So some products will become more and more expensive. At the same point of time, by and large in the storytelling, a lot of planning has to happen that you don't do wastage. There is nothing wrong if the screen or the scene demands the cost, but do your planning properly, do your cost rationalization properly, that you don't waste money to give the same impact.
So now coming to the role of as the president of the Producers Guild of India, what are your immediate priorities as president of the guild, and how do you address challenges faced by producers in the current ecosystem?
So producers in the current ecosystem, I think, in some way, I think producers as we look at it, are I think the most vulnerable lot in the scheme of the things of the last few years, if you look at it. So the first objective of the producers body will be to see how to retain or how to get the health of the industry back in the system. Because see, honestly, the industry is not built on 5 movies doing extraordinary numbers. Our success will be when majority of my members are making a healthy, profitable, rational businesses, right? And there are several challenges now in the overall ecosystem. In the overall ecosystem, as we already touched upon, that theatrical box office is probably unpredictable. We are also seeing almost over the last 24 months that definitely the buying of content by the digital and the satellite players have been affected. Lesser amount of buying is happening, or the value and the volume has also come down. The linear TV or the pay TV, what we call it, are going through these own challenges in the whole ad space, and therefore there is a significant level of churn or reduction in the satellite buying of the films. So a producer earlier, when he used to work on a structure or work on a product, and used to, after creatively greenlighting, when you look at it commercially, there is a significant shift in the ecosystem, right? At the same rate, there are several larger challenges in the macro space. So when we say that what are the challenges, yes, of course, there are ongoing issues or discussions which we have with the exhibitors, be it the VPF charges, be it the better showcasing, be it available of occupancy when there are, available of screens when there are multiple films coming during the same windows and etc. Windowing between the theatrical as well as the digital, whether that should be 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 4 weeks, different kind of discussions. Similarly, the discussions which are ongoing with the different platforms, while we don't get into the commercial journey between the producer and the platform, but how does that overall ecosystem can be more stable, especially a lot of discussions are happening there even on the windowing phase. But apart from these industry related issues, the larger macro issue, and if we step back for a minute, and that's something which I always harp upon from our platform's point of view, that if I look at in India, there are 4 or 5 areas, if I look at a little long term, what are the challenges in the industry. And this is something we often on when we indulge with or we get into a discussion with even INB ministries, Ashwini Vaishnavji, or even at state level ministries or different level CMs when we meet. The first challenge of the industry, and I'm only talking of the long term challenges, the mid and the short term challenges will be there, for which we have to live for another day and we continue. The biggest challenge in this industry is the industry completely lacks institutional capital. Unlike any developed market, and in that comparison, when I bring in Hollywood, I bring Western European markets, I bring in Eastern European market, Southeast Asian market, look at Japan or Korea, European market like France, Europe, everywhere. The entertainment of the film desk of a banking sector are 75 years, 100 years old. Take an example of JP Morgan, take an example of Barclays, take an example of Coutts, take an example of BNP Paribas. Each of these institutions and many more, each of these institutions have a film desk or a film segment which are financing films for last 100 odd years, 70 years, 100 years, 80 years. When BNP Paribas must be last 80 years they're funding films. Whereas in India, the concept of institutional financing is zilch, is absolutely zilch. And there are reasons which I don't say that that the entire blame is someone else. I think as an industry also we have not been able to project ourselves in the way or to make our noise. But that is something is one of the core area which we have been harping with our Ministry of INB as well as Ministry of Finance, that you need to allocate. If you have given this industry an industry status in 2000, which is 25 years back, but till today, no banks, no financial institutions have a recognized film financing portfolio. Off and on in last 20 odd years, sometime IDBI was a little active, then Yes Bank was a little active. Few banks have done, and some, I think in a year if you are making 1500 films, cumulatively few banks have 2, 3, 4, 5 films have got financed. Or maybe a large corporate where the balance sheet can take a financing has happened. But in India, the institutional capital is the first thing what we have to ensure that how the Ministry of Finance work cohesively with the Ministry of INB and creates a position of allocating a certain fund toward this industry. And let's look at the number point of view. In India, film industry is still a very small industry in terms of the situation. But the power and the opportunities what it creates for the employment, both directly and indirectly, is a significant stake in compared to many other industries. So that is one of the big challenges what has not happened here. The second point what we raised with the Ministry of INB is that India lacks investment of capital both for creation as well as the distribution setup. There has to be capital investment, and capital investment in the country for this sector primarily from the donkeys of last 100 odd years has been only dependent upon the private sector. There has been no public sector investment. Give an example. When we talk of the first basic, and it's not a very complicated industry, the first basic requirement of this industry when you look at infrastructure investment is how many film studios and setups you have in the country. If someone asks me to rank between 1 to 10, I think I'll put within the country whatever is available, I'll put Ramoji as number 1. And the number 2 actually will be number 11. There is nothing between 2 to 10. Every city has some mom and pop shops. Unfortunately, we have a large film, at least the land is here in the film city, but there has hardly been no investment and the position, and it requires a significant redevelopment. We took up these issues with INB Ministry, with even our CM here, Devendra Fadnavis. He actually, in his last tenure, when in 2019, this was one of his paid project of in Maharashtra how to create a ecosystem of the film and development. Producers Guild and ENY worked very closely, and we submitted a white paper to him. Unfortunately, before he tried to take up this issue, I think the whole government changed, and we are now hopeful. We have again reached across to him that for a film city redevelopment is like, I think I remember the plan that point of time, the film city redevelopment plan was something like a 3,000 crore. That in one way is my one Ladki Bahin Yojana, right? So I'm not comparing, or I'm not saying that something should not be done or something should be done. But look at the objective, and if there is an investment in a film city, how much of talent pool and how much of work and employment and job it can grow, both directly and indirectly in the ecosystem. The third phase, what we spoke with the government at that point, a little allied phase here, that our industry is not only in the infrastructure. While I spoke about the site of the creation, the area which is also very neglected in last 100 odd years is that there is there was zero investment in the exhibition sector on the government side, and the exhibition sector is virtually dying. If the films are so unpredictable, barring one or two large players, even the large players are also under serious cash strain. Single screens are getting shutting down, and you travel 50 kilometers out of Bombay, you will find that in 50 to 100 odd kilometers there is no cinema screen. So even if people have a capacity of purchasing a ticket for a middle class family to go and buy to see a film, there is no avenues, right? Now, private sector, of course, has invested money over a period of time, but it is largely passion and interest of individuals who have invested money and gone. The government needs to find a way how to reach the tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 cities, and there is a significant business opportunity there if the infrastructure can be created. And several models can be created. It can be a model which we presented a lot of models which are like, okay, let's create at 50 lakh can I make a screen, at 1 crore can I make a screen, at a town which has a 10,000 population, how many screen one should be available. A lot of work have happened, but these are the two places where when you say that government has to put an impetus, government has to put an impetus to kickstart an area. So this was my second point. Third situation, which is also another tricky issue which we have been talking with government for quite some time. In India, the life of Copyright Act is for 60 years. Okay, so that means in 2025, any film which has came in 1965, 35 and 20, any film 1965 or earlier is already in public domain, right? So that's a huge stress in the minds of the producers or the right owners. Most of the developed countries, if I look at US, UK, or most of the developed countries, the period is range between 80 to 90 years, and in many of the countries it is 80 to 90 years after the death of the writer or after the death of the right owner, right? That is another aspect we have been talking with government for quite some period of time, that you increase the tenure. There is a fourth element which Producer Guild is also actively working with them, is that, and these are the funny situations in this country, that when as an Indian film producer I go to multiple countries and shoot, virtually every single country gives me an incentive, grants, tax subsidies, tax credits, and etc. of the world. Anything between 20 to 40% is very much achievable in most of the European countries, Mauritius, wherever I go, right? In India, we give that red carpet to foreign films which comes and produce here. We have a very well-crafted policy with an upper limit of 30 crore. For Indian film shoot in India, there is nothing, right? So, and we have, most of the states have now mushroomed with those policies, and many of the states we have been talking, but they have kept an upper limit of 1 crore, 2 crore rupees. Now, if I'm making a 100 crore film, I don't care for the 2 crore rupees, but I'll only go if my story requires, and I'll shoot and etc. and come back. So, there has to be a focus that it is not, and when we spoke with most of the government, I said, okay, fine. You are saying that, okay, this is an investment you are doing in terms of the grants or credit. What is the generation of usage, or what is the generation of employment it is generating for those 90 days or 120 days when I'm shooting there? Starting from the limited expenditure of the workers, in terms of the expenditure, what we're doing to all the shops, all the props, all the lights, camera, sound, everything. Forget everything. We are generating 18% GST. You at least give back the state GST, 9% at least give it back for some period of time. So yes, I think when we talk as a Producers Guild that what are the objectives, I'll stress upon at least the larger objectives. There is always a lot of midterm objectives. I mean, and at any point of time, like there was a time when we have been very much actively working with the government on Cinematograph Act. Now we are working on the broadcasting bill, in between the whole OTT scenario, regulations, those discussions. So government also recognizes our body or respects our thought processes. So most of the time, whenever any drafts or whenever policies came, they engage with us. But from a long-term impetus point of view, I think availability of institutional capital, investment in the infrastructure, increase in the opportunities of incentives, grants in the ecosystem. Fourth element we spoke about is copyright period. There is another area which is also we are talking at large, I mean, lot of with the government's bodies, is that, see, our industries again is not only brick and mortar, it is ultimately people.
True.
Now, if I look at the country as a whole, till date, we have to speak, I mean, and if I look at that, what are the educational setup of skilling my workers or giving training or creating an ecosystem, I still have to go back to only FTI and SLFTI and 2 or 3 other institutions, right? Whereas if this is such a large industry and with so many different work profiles within that space, there is a scope or there is a requirement, I won't say scope, there is a requirement of a skill, getting the skilling done in an organized vocational manner, and how we can create that ecosystem of the people. Otherwise, it happens like we have been discussing that many states are now making their film cities. Now you make the film cities, you don't have the workers, you don't know the people have the skills. Now you bring the people from Bombay, then what is the point? Why should I go to it, right? So yes, so I think producer skill is always, I mean, you ask me, I can talk for next 2 hours, but that would serve the purpose. So there is always an evolving area of discussion from a guild perspective.
Just coming back to the exhibition sector, which is really under stress. I used to do an exhibition called Cinema India way back in 2012-11 in Renaissance. So at that point, we had invited the National Association of Theatre Owners from America and the Cinema Owners Exhibition Association from Mumbai, Maharashtra, Gujarat, and from South. So we had a round table there with them. So the points which they came up was piracy was a major aspect, and the number of screens. If you compare China to India, like India, you say maybe 10 years back there were 13,000 screens, single screens. It's drastically come down to maybe 9 or 8,000. So those were some of the comparisons which were being done. Now globally also, if you look at it, exhibition screens have consolidated. Most of them have been acquired post-COVID. So in India, I mean, access to capital funding is a major issue. But now if you look at South, like Telugu has I think the largest number of screens if you compare it to the other parts of India. So how does it happen that there you have significantly more number of screens and
So I think let's start. I mean, let's start the scenario that where the country was there, right? If we look at early 2000, India used to have 13,000 odd screens.
Right.
China used to have 8,000 odd screens. Today, China is around 85,000 odd screens, and we have reduced to 9,000, 10,000 kind of a number, right? Now, India is also as a country, if you look at it, is that it is it's like a mini Europe, right? Every state has its own economics and own journeys and etc. Now, if you look at industries, like if you look at the 2 markets like Tamil and Telugu. Now in both the markets, Telugu, I think last 5 to 7 years, 7-8 years, we have seen a lot of advent, but before that it was primarily a single screen market.
Correct.
And so used to be Tamil Nadu, right? Now in last 5-7 years, the national players are also trying and setting up the shop, but still it is primarily a single screen market.
Exactly.
Couple of things which are like there are pros and cons of all sides of story. So the 2 states also run with a scenario of a certain capping of the ticket prices. That is one. Second aspect is not so much of the capping, but I think culturally, because I spent a lot of time in the Telugu market, making Telugu films as well as in Tamil. Somewhere film as a space is much closer to the audience's mind as a part of their day-to-day ecosystem, vis-a-vis anywhere in the north. Any big hero, big star, etc. of the films, whenever they comes, with the show starting at night, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 7 o'clock in the morning, with thousands of people outside, that fan following, that icon as a concept, that is very different in South vis-a-vis in North. Having said so, Telugu as an industry, and why only Telugu? I think with Telugu, even Malayalam and some of the industries, over last 1 decade, they have also curated and cultured significantly good stories, right? Now, coming back to the situation of the exhibition as a sector where there are more screens and there's places where there are less screens and etc. of the world, let's look at the Hindi market. Now in Hindi market, what we generally call the Bombay circuit or Maharashtra as a state is one of the largest revenue giving for a Hindi film. Now, the dichotomy what has happened in this part of the country, or in many, actually overall the country, is that somehow the metros are saturated, but the moment you come one step below the metro, there is hardly anything there, right? So when you look at a metro like a Bombay city, and if you look at a western, you look at the vicinity of 3 kilometer radius, you will find there is a PVR Juhu, there is a PVR Icon, there is a Cinepolis, there is a PVR City Mall. There are probably 4 or 5 properties with at least more than 25 to 30 screens. You take out your car and travel 40 kilometers outside Panvel, you will not find a screen. Whereas purchasing power of the people over last few decades, people in the smaller, I won't even say smaller town, even the mid-town or the tier 1 town or the tier 2 town, there is significant increase in there is a purchasing power of the people who can, on a weekend the family can go and see a film, but there is no avenues there. So where the country lacks is creation of the second generation of the screens. I am not expecting that you need to create a PVR Inox of the world, because that you may not have a taker, because there you have already reached a ceiling, your occupancy is not more than 30%, 35%, 30 is a fantastic number, right? Whereas there are places where there are miles after miles there are no cinema. So if we can provide a hygienic, decent cinema viewing experience, and the word I am using hygienic because a lot of the families don't go to the cinemas because they have in their mindset. If the bathroom will be clean, can I get a food at a certain price? Will be under too much of rush and etc. or not? If we can provide that as an opportunity, definitely there is a significant population who can go. But probably it has to be a different strategy. Few players have been working on that, but let's see what does it do.
So, emerging formats, you have elaborated on how Reliance is exploring new storytelling formats as web series, interactive. Sure. Anything more you would like to add on that front?
Honestly, I think we have covered most of the things. So, our core thought process is that formats will evolve. You have to be focused on your content. If you are focused on your content, across formats, you'll be able to tell your stories.
Right. Coming to the other global collaborations, how is Reliance Entertainment working to build partnerships with international studios and distributors? Because I remember a time when Mr. Anil Ambani made an entry. He was acquiring Steven Spielberg's studio, and then he acquired the cinema exhibition, and then he made an exit from there. I mean, everybody was anticipating that this could be the rise of a phenomenal studio. Finally India would have something like that.
Right. So yes, I think 2007-8 onwards we did lot of steps that point of time. Steven Spielberg Studio we still continue to hold 22% stake in that Amblin. Okay. And majority of our other investments we have basically pivoted from most of the focus. So currently, if you ask me, I think honestly the focus will be more local. When I mean local, is more focused towards the India centric as an approach, and we have also reached a little. I don't know how much it is designed or default, but we have reached a scenario that we are probably only one studio in the country who are across all this platform, between an animation to live action to OTT content to our games, etc. The focus will be to probably create at least in the top 3, if we are not already in the top 3 in each of this segment in the market, and then probably even if we look global, I don't think the thought process will not be so much of a global from a film perspective, but there are opportunities where we are collaborating, and as we speak we are collaborating a lot on a content level. So there may be stories which we are collaborating, there may be writers which we are collaborating, there may be creative producers who are collaborating, because with the advent of the OTT, the market is now wide open in front of us, and the thought process will be probably now more to approach with whether Indian stories can go global or a global stories can be made in India, than as a thought process of going or acquiring other studios or approach or an inorganic approach. I don't foresee that currently that should be the focus.
We're coming to the last 2-3 questions. Are you looking at an international collaboration where you're looking at seeking international funding or acquisition, in a majority or minority stake?
So the company anyway is going through a restructuring. When I mean restructuring, I mean the financial restructuring as a plan. And in the financial restructuring as a plan, the discussions, there are discussions which are, as we speak, are on the table. But that restructuring thought process is not necessarily meant only looking at a strategic partner or only looking at a financial partner with a perspective. Currently, it is in a process. I mean, as we speak, it is in a process. And I think if everything gets closed, then definitely we'll find its journey.
Coming to this question of how do you see the role of technology like AI, VFX, virtual production, reshaping the Indian entertainment sector, because these are niche technologies.
Yeah, so it's happening probably significantly, and it's happening probably way faster than anticipated. So of course the few elements which have been there for almost last 1 decade is in terms of the advent of the VFX and the CG and the quality of work, and it all comes from the audience's expectations, right? Because if an audience today sitting here is expecting to see a certain quality in a Hollywood film, then that benchmark always comes at what is the local content providing me. But definitely with the advent of the AI, as we are all wrapping our minds around it, there are changes which are marked and quite sharp, and it's happening quite fast. So what we foresee over a period of time is that the first thing first is that definitely when there is a technology advancement, one has to grow with it and adapt with it. And even if there are, in the short to medium term, there are negative effects of that, one has to think how to work around that. It is many of the works which is saying that it is expected that in next 4 to 5 years time there are significant amount of job losses, certain categories of work which will go, certain kind of things will go. But if ultimately it is adding to audiences' experience, then we as a community have to think that how with the technology we can reach that audience preference either at a better quality or at a cheaper price, or increasing his experience at the end of the day. There is no two ways about it. I remember in my school days, school days or college, not even college days, I think school days, in the 80s, when the first time the whole advent of computerization was happening in the country, and we used to hear that a lot of strikes and etc. used to happen, like in public sector, in banks, in rails, and etc. because it will take away our jobs. By the time I got into my first employment, we used to have like one room where 8 or 10 computers used to be there, and you used to got EDP room. People used to go in those rooms and you have to get half an hour slot work on the computer, to the extent of your own desktop, to your laptop, to your iPad, and it's life has moved on. Now it's your phone, right? At the end of the day. So that what I also speak when I speak with my people, that when with the advent of AI, as we can see, there are several low-hanging things that already have started happening. The whole dubbing industry is going through significant shift. It's virtually changed already. Even at a stage of whether it's a storytelling or whether it's stage of a lot of the marketing tools, like your creation of your trailers, teasers, static videos, banners, posters. A lot of these elements have already started happening in small bits and pieces. But a lot of change will happen even in the film making as a process. So what will happen is that lots of jobs will go, lots of skill sets will not be relevant. But at the same point of time, with this skill force, you have to see that what are the kind of skilling needs to happen so that I can reach the final goal, which is audience's preference, and at a better cost, better value, right? If that we can achieve, and significant shifts will happen over a period of time, as we are seeing shifts are happening. You are aware that last 1.5 years back there was a long 1 year drawn strike in the writers' strike as well as the actors' strike in the West. But when the technology shift is happening, you can't oppose that. You have to see that what benefits you can take out of it and how you can make a larger opportunity. A lot of regulations has to flow. I think the current sphere of anxiety is about the lack of regulation. a lot of litigations will ultimately create a regulation process, which is happening across the globe. There are a lot of litigations and etc. will shape up. So yes, I think that's the advent what we're seeing in case of content creation, content experience. Apart from the usual stuff of, I mean, usual means like apart from like the all your VFX and which is already is there as we speak. So yes, I think exciting times.
So coming to your last couple of questions, your personal journey, what motivated you to come into the entertainment business, or you have been from this industry only all along?
No, I actually I was never part of this industry. So as I mean, by profession, I'm basically a chartered accountant.
Okay.
I'm a finance background. I did my cost. I did my company secretary, and I was working for first 10 years of my career in a lot of times in the FMCG. So I was a long time in Godrej, and my entry into this ecosystem was I mean, it was a very funny reason, and that probably the reason why I continued for so long is that I was working in Godrej. It was a very well established business. It was large profitable business we used to run, and in a 6-7 years time I have got my promotions, I got new job opportunities, and I was like number 2 in the corporate finance as well as the company secretary. But it was an extremely process driven company. Everything is set. It's a 100 years old organization. You don't have to ask anything to yourself. Everything before you, somebody has set a precedent. You have to just follow the precedent. You have to follow the process. You get the result. Out of sheer frustration of not doing something out of the box, I just looked for a job opportunity and I joined a company which I had no clue. I had zero clue. And I joined a company called UTV Software, which is in 2003, which is Ronnie Struvaller's company. And I left Godrej. It was a 4,000 crore business. I joined UTV, which was a 100 crore business at that point of time. Of course, my parents just could not understand why you go into a film business. Because film is something in those 20 years back. It's not an ecosystem you want to be. You are a chartered accountant. Right? But I joined, and I'll tell you my anecdotes in life. So first day I joined the company, and I was given a place to sit, a cabin to sit.
So it must have been in Worli, that studio?
That Moses Road, the small you have to go. And the first thing which struck me was the walls are pink color, green color, yellow color kind. In Godrej, your size of your table and size of your cubicle is a function of your designation. If you are in this grade, you will be getting X square feet by X square feet. Your table will be this square feet. Everything is set, right? So for me, the first shock was, how can an office will have fancy color? Right? So that was my first shock. Anyway, I have joined, so there is no question of getting shocked. And then I was sitting at my cabin, and what happened when you join? People give you first 3-4 days you spend your time, right? You give annual report. I was going through the annual report. And in the annual report, there was a line item in the balance sheet called inventory. Okay.
Bharat Sundar also was part of the studio that time?
Bharat has quit that point of time. So, all these guys, Deven Kote, Zarina, they were all there. So, I saw word inventory and I got excited because this is the only common word. I come from the FMCG, supply chain management, logistics. So, I said, chalo, inventory to ek mila. So, there was an admin guy. And I called the admin guy and I said, and inventory was some 40 crore rupees, right? So I said 40 crore rupees Godrej mindset. And 40 crore rupees means कम से कम 20,000 स्क्वायर फीट का गोडाउन होगा. तो मैं पूछा था तुम्हारा गोडाउन किधर है? तो बोला क्या चीज़ का गोडाउन? हम लोग इन्वेंट्री है. बोले इन्वेंट्री? ओह ये टेप है. वो आपका कमरा का पीछे है. तो I couldn't understand. I said मेरा कमरे का पीछे है. बोला हाँ आपका पीछे देखो ना एक रूम है उधर है. So that is my first shock that this is a world of intangible. Because for him 40 crore rupees is a 40 crore worth of film assets, which is ultimately in a tape. In my world, I have seen everything brick and mortar. I have not seen anything which is intangible, right? So that was my first change in life. So from 2003 after that, I mean, and if you ask me the question that why probably I continued in this industry, and on a serious note, this industry, my last 20-22 years of journey is, first you need a mix of commerce and creation. It is, I have worked, I mean, not only in Godrej, I have worked in public sector, I have worked in liquor manufacturing company, I worked in white goods. But the mix of creative and commerce is probably very unique to this industry, that you need to have that balance. And everybody is striving to achieve that balance. Most of the time it does not happen, but many times it happens. Number one. Number two, that there is a science in this madness, right? It's not only creative madness world, there is a science to it, there is a process to it, and every day there is a new challenge. The challenge was not there yesterday, there is a new challenge today, right? So probably what keeps people like us continuing in this ecosystem is that you constantly thrive on those challenges. You leave on one challenge to another day, and you every day you learn something. I don't think many process-driven industries that was not possible. And it is nothing to do with it is not a sunrise industry, it's a 100-year-old industry, right? So it is nothing to do with a new industry or something. But the newness is every day you are guessing that what you have to do for your consumer. If I am creating or I am successful in creating a formula for a Godrej soap, that brand is there for next 10 to 15 years. Here, there is no formula that in a given year, Shahrukh does a Pathan, Jawan and then a Donkey. There is no formula. There is no formula for success. There is no formula for. There are some formulas for failure, definitely, but there is no formula for success. So I think it always keeps you on your toes. So I think to some extent, as funny or as the way it sounds, but the industry keeps you constantly challenging yourself, challenging your own work structure, everything. That's why people move. So very few people gets in and then able to get out.
So coming to my last question, do we see Mr. Shibasish Sarkar owning a studio in the future? Oh. How do you see that? Do you see you like a Yash Raj, owning?
No. So I think
because you have the perfect background of the economics and the creative.
But there are many other requirements one needs to fulfill before reaching that stage. Having said so, I think, honestly, where do we get our high? Let's just say we get our high when you see that something which we create reaches audience's attention, whether creatively or commercially. So we get excited when a movies of Sooryavanshi does an exciting number, or movies like a Simba or Singham, etc. At the same time, we get a high when a film like Chamkila did a great numbers, right? So yes, as an aspiration wise, when we work for an organization, we work in a system, and it's a very people-driven organization, right? I mean, people-driven business. So you intend to create your ecosystem, you intend to create your people, you intend to run with those people. That whether you own or run is finally a destiny. But somewhere you always aspire that you probably design or run in an ecosystem where somewhere you have been a part of that design. So incidentally, this organization has given me that space, because being joined very early and given a complete freedom in terms of running, probably that journey was always there. But yeah, who knows what happens in future.
Thank you so much, sir. Wishing you good luck in your innings as president of the guild, and seeing you in a new avatar also.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your